The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or other print disabilities that make reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, January the 8th, 2026. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost. And starting with the front page, Venezuela muddies Trump's message. Focus could undercut America First promise. Joey Garrison of USA Today writes this article. Even before the United States seized control of Venezuela and ousted its leader, some of President Trump's allies worried he was giving too much attention abroad, while Americans made clear their top concern was the economy and cost of living at home. Now, the capture of Nicolas Maduro, Trump is already talking about other foreign objectives. He says the U.S. will run Venezuela and tap the country's vast oil supply. He now has warned that Cuba is on the verge of collapsing next, threatened military intervention in Colombia, and renewed his call for the United States to seize Greenland, which is part of Denmark. He's even given his aggressive intervention in the Western Hemisphere a name, the Donroe Doctrine, which is a rebranding of the early 19th century Monroe Doctrine. Add it all up, and it risks undercutting Trump's push to regain Americans' trust in the economy by handing Democrats a new line for the midterm elections, namely that Trump and the Republicans are fixated on oil and American imperialism rather than on the checking accounts of the rank-and-file U.S. citizen. The American people reject the possibility of another unjustified foreign war. It seems to be on the horizon because of Trump's desire to reward big oil in the U.S. while continuing to do not a damn thing to make life better for the American people. This a quote from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries as of January 5th. The White House has argued the military's operation on January 3rd demonstrated the power of the U.S. abroad. Trump officials have also worked to put Democrats on the defense by emphasizing that Maduro's leadership was widely condemned by both parties. President Joe Biden had placed a $25 million bounty on Maduro for information leading to his arrest. Now, Trump has routinely slammed the concept of nation building and criticized his predecessors for entangling the United States in foreign affairs. And yet, the president rejected any suggestion that the action in Venezuela betrays his mantra of America First, arguing that seizing Venezuelan oil is crucial for American interests. We want to surround ourselves with energy, Trump said at his initial news conference on the Venezuelan operation. We have tremendous energy in that country. It's very important that we protect it. We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world. A new poll from Reuters, Ipsos, however, found that only 1 out of every 3 Americans approve of the U.S. military strike, and that 72% worry that the United States is going to become too involved in the country's problems. Just 23% of independent voters, and it's a voting bloc that will be crucial to the outcome of the midterms, said that they support the action in Venezuela. Meanwhile, the Gallup poll found that the president's approval rating stood at 36% in December, with only 24% of Americans saying they're satisfied with the state of the economy. 57% of Americans disapproved of Trump's handling of the economy, according to a PBS News NPR Marist poll last month. The American public does not want their boys and girls from Florida, from Nebraska, from Arizona to go fight for big oil, according to Senator Ruben Gallego, Democrat from Arizona, as he said on January 5th on MS Now's Morning Joe. That's not what the last election was about, the senator added, referring to Trump's 2024 campaign promise to bring down costs on day one. How is that going to bring the cost of living down? Gallego asked. How is that going to help me buy a house? How is that going to help my kid who just graduated from college to get a job? Former Ohio Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown seized on Trump's attack on Venezuela in his campaign to return to the Senate after losing his re-election bid in 2024. Hundreds of thousands of Ohioans are struggling to make ends meet. Yet Washington continues to make their lives harder while prioritizing foreign countries before our own, Brown posted on X. Ohioans are facing higher costs across the board and are desperate for leadership that will help deliver relief. We should be more focused on improving the lives of Ohioans, not Caracas. Democrats used affordability as their underlying campaign message en route to overperforming in special House elections across the country last year and producing double-digit victories in off-year gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia. The cost of living is expected to be the centerpiece of Democrats' message in the 2026 midterm races as they look to take control of the House and the Senate. The economy, and particularly inflation, and the growth of the economy are still likely to be the dominant issues, according to Whit Ayers, longtime Republican strategist and president of North Star Opinion Research. Now, but whether that indeed occurs depends upon how these other foreign interventions work out. If you end up in a shooting war with some other country, it's going to be very different. Ayers said Democrats will try to make the argument that Trump is distracted by his administration's ventures in Venezuela and beyond. But if the inflation comes down and the economy gets going, that's not going to work. Americans' gloomy outlook on the economy, despite inflation being down from the post-pandemic peak under Biden, prompted Trump to kick off a speaking tour in December that began with rallies in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. He has called affordability a hoax, pushed by Democrats because they are the ones to blame, he said, for soaring inflation in Biden's presidency. In an 84-minute address to House Republicans at a party retreat January 6th in Washington, Trump touted a record-high stock market, strengthening 401k retirement plans, and his effort to bring down the price of drugs through a new most favored nation policy. Trump also urged Republicans to run on tax cuts and other measures in his One Big Beautiful Bill law that passed last year. You have so much ammunition, all you have to do is sell it, Trump told his Republican allies. You've got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached. If Trump's efforts for American businesses to take control of Venezuelan oil prove successful and energy prices decrease in the U.S., Trump could argue his intervention directly improved the lives of Americans. Yet, Trump also pointed to the long history of the party of a sitting president, often losing midterm races, calling it an amazing phenomenon in his remarks to House Republicans. He also acknowledged his sagging poll numbers. I wish you could explain to me what the hell's going on with the mind of the public, because we have the right policy, he told the Kennedy Center crowd. They don't, he added, referring to Democrats. They have a horrible policy. But it remains to be seen whether most Americans will agree with him on Venezuela. Before her dramatic falling out with Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, whose resignation from Congress became official January 5, was among Trump's allies last year who urged the president to spend less time meeting with foreign leaders and to focus more on domestic policy. This is what many in MAGA thought they voted to end, Green said in a post in X after Maduro's capture. She criticized the president for focusing on regime change in another nation, while Americans are consistently facing increasing cost of living, housing, health care, and learn about scams and fraud of their tax dollars. Veteran Democratic pollster John Anzalone said, "No one in America woke up on January 3rd saying, 'Man, super concerned with Venezuela. I really hope that Trump does something about it.'" Instead, Anzalone said, Americans conveyed just the opposite in several focus groups he conducted before the end of last year. They wish he would just focus on the economy. I think that you will have that even heightened today, that he's playing army instead of focusing on the struggle. And it's where he's going to lose people. Anzalone, chief pollster of Biden's 2020 campaign, compared Trump's situation to the disconnect Biden struggled with during his one term in office as Trump's Democratic predecessor touted economic gains while Americans expressed economic frustration. Trump is getting in Joe Biden territory here, and that's a problem for him.
For many, for many, 2016 remains pivotal, nostalgic. From Kate Perez of USA Today. Although we've officially entered 2026, some people are still reminiscing about 2016. Pokemon Go, Stranger Things, and Hamilton are some of the major pop culture moments conjured up in people's brains when they think of 2016, a year pivotal for many and nostalgic for others. It's the year that saw everything from clown sightings and the first-time election of President Donald Trump to viral trends and videos. It took over the internet, like the Mannequin Challenge and Chewbacca Mom. Now, 10 years later, the year is still remembered as one of significance across generations. But where some people see a year that changed the world for the worse, others see it through rose-colored glasses. There's evidence, that's evident on Google, where if you type "why is 2016" in the search bar, the fill-in responses include, "Why is 2016 the best year? Why is 2016 so popular? And why is 2016 so nostalgic?" Some psychologists say the answer could lie in people's age group and experiences during that year. 2026 is the new 2016. The calendar might say 2026, but some people on social media are not acknowledging it. The new year ushered in a new trend on TikTok where users post pictures from 10 years ago alongside words like "Happy 2016," "Wake up, it's 2016," "It's officially 2016," and 2026 is the new 2016. Some people are using the new year to call for a 2016 renaissance, while others have been wishing for the year's return long before the clock struck midnight. Videos have circulated on social media platforms like TikTok for years, hoping 2016's vibes, memes, and culture would return. Multiple videos from 2025 have gained attention, captioned "Petition to bring back every single dance from 2016." You're right. I would like to go back to a 2016 house party, and I wish I was a teenager in 2016. Nostalgia can be triggered by anything, but the internal psychological triggers of nostalgia tend to be negative emotions like stress, loneliness, or anxiety. People feel stress or anxiety and become nostalgic for times past as the way to both comfort and inspire themselves, Clay Routledge, an existential psychologist, told USA Today. There is a link between the serious events in the world and the pop culture occurring at the same time. People often turn to different sources for inspiration and energy at those moments of anxiety and distress, he added. Similar to saving pennies for a rainy day, people are able to look back and draw from past experiences as resources that are fun, fulfilling, meaningful, and energizing. A lot of that stuff is pop cultural. That seems like, oh, that's just silly to watch old movies or to play old video games or listen to old music. But in reality, engaging in that type of stuff improves our well-being and motivates us, and that can help us in the more serious moments, Routledge said. The year 2016 was full of both historical and pop culture moments. It included historical moments that have since shaped the United States and world, including the deaths of multiple public figures and the election of Trump as president. While there have always been political divisions in the United States, some point to the end of 2016 as a key moment when politics became more intense, leading to feelings of nostalgia, according to Routledge.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:15.
Continuing, the tie between politics and 2016 plays a strong role in people's feelings about the year, said Jean Twenge, a psychologist and author of Generations, the real differences between Gen Z, Millennials, Gen X, Boomers, and Silents, and what they mean for America's future. For those who opposed intensifying political divisions following the 2016 election, the year can feel like the calm before the storm, according to Twenge. For a lot of people, you look back on that summer of 2016 as like the summer of innocence, like the summer before everything changed. Twenge said of the political atmosphere in the United States, the summer of 2016 feels like September 10th, 2001, the moment before everything changed. This time when we didn't realize how good things actually were. What might be a sentiment shared by 2016 appreciators is not necessarily a true representation of the cultural shift that year. Politically and socially, things had already started to change into what we see now culturally, Twenge added. Social media can also contribute to 2016 nostalgia as platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, and Musical Lie became popular in the 2010s. Some of the more toxic social media shifts present today started before 2016 and ramped up after the year's end. From 2014 to 17, adults from 18 to 34 years old saw increased rates of depression that could be linked to people using more social media and spending less time face-to-face with others. Similar to the shift in political atmosphere, social media culture may have also shifted following 2016. In some present-day videos and posts, people attribute the 2016 nostalgia to the easygoing nature of social media at the time, which differs from the commercialization some feel has taken over platforms. Make Instagram casual again, proclaims one video. The generation that was in high school in the mid-2010s, we were truly in the sweet spot of social media where we had it, but it didn't run our lives like it does today, said the TikTok user in a post with over 12,000 likes. It really does suck that the only people posting online these days are companies or people trying to make money, because I miss so dearly when everyone from my high school would post once a quarter, at least once a holiday, another user said in a video with over 19,000 likes. The year also saw a physical change in Instagram's structure, with the app updating its long-standing realistic camera logo to the multicolored minimalistic one users see today when they use the app. Beyond that, your age in 2016 can also impact how you remember and feel about the year, especially if you were a young adult at the time. For that certain age group, it's nostalgia for childhood and early adolescence, not necessarily for that particular year, according to Twenge. Psychologically, this is known as a reminiscence bump, Routledge said. People tend to favor their childhood and adolescent memories more. And for those who were teenagers or young adults in 2016, the year might hold more weight. We can be nostalgic for any time we often are. And we often are, I should say, according to Routledge. We collect memories throughout our lives that we can draw from at any point in time, but we tend to privilege memories from our youth. For Routledge, the nostalgia and admiration people continue to feel for 2016 highlight how the year was useful in some way. It's okay to look back on the past fondly, he added. Even though people might be saying, hey, I'm looking to 2016 nostalgically, what they're really saying is there's something about that year that can help me approach this year, according to Routledge. What's happening in the brain is how we're using nostalgia as this self-regulatory resource to move forward with some sense of confidence and direction.
All right. Just trying to survive. Madeline Mitchell of USA Today writes this opinion piece. The dateline is Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, it's the day before Thanksgiving, And Janika Jameson, 38, doesn't have any holiday plans. She's wearing elephant print pajamas, snuggled in a hotel bed with her oldest daughter, 15-year-old Eden, and her youngest, 1-year-old Everly. Her middle daughter, 9-year-old Easton, is with her dad for the weekend. It's the quietest the hotel room has been in a while, Jameson says. Her family has been living here for a couple of weeks. 5 of them packed into the 2-bed space with a mini fridge, a microwave, and a hot plate for a kitchen. Each day, she and her husband, Tristan Terrace, scrounge together what cash they can get to pay for the next night's stay. More often than she'd like to admit, Jameson ends up calling her father to ask for a loan. She has no idea when or if she'll even begin to pay him back. They've been homeless for 14 months, ever since Harris's multiple sclerosis flare-up and Jameson's difficult pregnancy led to a jobless summer and eventual eviction in September of 2024. The family bounced around to different extended family members' houses and hotels for about a year, separating for weeks at a time. Jameson says she and Harris spent one night in the car with the baby. The hotel they're in now is further from their parents and closer to a job Jameson held for 3 weeks in the fall before she was let go for taking too much time off to care for her family. It costs $100 per night, but at least staying there means they can all be together. Jameson gets a text from Eden's boyfriend's dad inviting the family to a Thanksgiving dinner the next day. Just the mention of her boyfriend's name makes Eden smile wide. They've only been together for 3 months, but she says it's been a good distraction from the chaos her family is going through. The next day, Jameson sends her family off to the Thanksgiving feast. She stays at the hotel alone, enjoying a few hours of peace when nobody is calling my name. I don't want the only thing I do to be caregiving, Jameson says. She wants to work as a school counselor, like she did for a decade before her world came crashing down. She wants her family to be back in stable housing, back to indulging in the small luxuries that make life fun, like manicures, dance classes. She wants to build up her savings again. She wants a kitchen to be able to cook for her family and meal prep for the week. She wants Eden to be able to be a kid instead of trying to be a little adult all the time, changing Everly's diapers and feeding her bottles. But between scheduling her husband's neurology appointments, managing Easton's epilepsy symptoms, and following up with Everly's pediatrician about her cranial helmet to correct her severe plagiocephaly, on top of the typical mental load of motherhood and less typical stress of homelessness, Jameson is in survival mode without a clear path forward. Things are really the worst they've ever been, Jameson says, and it's really linked to me having to care for everybody else. Most Americans are like Jameson was 2 years ago, one crisis away from homelessness, according to the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness. Before the eviction, Jameson was in her 10th year working as a school counselor. She was making about $60,000 a year. Jameson's salary was on a par with the median income for an American worker, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. But in today's economy, even workers who earn 6-figure salaries find themselves living paycheck to paycheck, most recent studies have found. Millions of people are at risk of homelessness, according to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, with 2/3 of extremely low-income households spending 50% or more of their income on housing, as opposed to the recommended 30%. Donald Whitehead, Executive Director for the National Coalition for the Homeless, says the homeless population could double in the next several years due to federal cutbacks in Medicaid and public housing. This is a common thing. There's just so many people who are right on the edge, financially at all times, says Steve Berg, He's the chief policy officer for the National Alliance to End Homelessness. Angela Williams, president and CEO of the United Way Worldwide, agrees each of us is just one diagnosis or disaster away from the breaking point. Caregiving is a much bigger piece than people realize when it comes to homelessness, especially since child care costs rival the cost of rent, says Anne Marie Studenmeyer, senior legal counsel for the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless in Washington. When families pivot to helping their loved ones with disabilities or medical issues, that extra expense can be enough to push them into homelessness very easily, Berg says. Family caregivers average 27 hours of care work per week, leaving them out of time to work professionally or to even look for paid work, which becomes a problem when the rent is due. Jamison loved her job as a counselor, but being on unpaid medical leave for several months during her high-risk pregnancy in 2023 hurt her bank account, and she missed rent payments. Her blood sugar was dangerously high. Her liver was failing. It was a scary time, Harris and Eden say. Eden worried her mom was on her deathbed. In a written response to court filings about her unpaid rent, dated October 27 of 2023, Jamison explained that her medical leave was unexpected and she'd been given the runaround when trying to get workplace accommodations. I informed my landlord that I am still trying to pay all past due rent, Jamison wrote. I just need a little more time. Jamison lost the baby and then got pregnant again with Everly. It was another high-risk pregnancy, and doctors tried to hospitalize her several times, Jamison says. I would sign myself out because I was like, I got to take care of my kids, she says. Jamison worked sporadically and cycled through paid and unpaid medical leave through 2024 into 2025. Her contract with the school district was not renewed at the end of the 25 school year. She'd like to file a complaint with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, but she says it's laughable how long and arduous the process is. She drained her retirement contributions and then filed for unemployment, but she says her status is still pending resolution. The family was evicted in September of 2024, and Everly was born 5 weeks prematurely the following month. While heartbreaking, Jamison's story is not unique, Whitehead says. Family homelessness saw the greatest increase in history, 39% from 2023 to 2024. And the journey out of homelessness can be nearly impossible for some families. Landlords are reluctant to rent to people with past evictions, Whitehead says. And to secure an apartment, families need a substantial amount of money up front to pay for the security deposit and the first month's rent. In the meantime, families like Jamison's with little means have to choose between basic needs like health care, housing, and food. Those are tough choices that we are asking people to make, Williams says. The girls are doing better now, Jamison says. Easton's anti-seizure medication has done wonders, and Eden's new school is good for her, both thanks to Jamison's tireless advocating on behalf of her daughters. She says she'll never forget the appointment when Easton was diagnosed with epilepsy. It was awful to watch, Jamison says, recalling through tears how medical professionals stimulated Easton's seizures in order to diagnose her. At the same time, Jamison was relieved. Finally, she remembers thinking, I've got the proof I need to get my baby help. Harris started infusion therapy and can work some days when his symptoms, fatigue, muscle weakness, cognitive and emotional strain, and gastrointestinal issues don't get in the way. Jamison says they've tried to file for disability, but it's a long process. It's not just enough to have MS, Berg says. It's a very complex process with a lot of ways to go wrong and sort of set up to be hard to do. Jameson has researched housing assistance and shelters in her area, but she says there's never room for her family, or she doesn't meet the criteria to get help. Some programs, like Charlotte Family Housing, require patients to have consistent work before setting them up with temporary housing. Governments and nonprofits need to rethink how to deliver services to people in need, Williams says. Jameson has a master's. She applies to counseling jobs all the time. Nothing has stuck. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30. Continuing, she does not want to be a stay-at-home mom, Jameson says, but she feels like one, even without a place to call home. The mad rush to get Eden and Easton off to school starts before 5:30 in the morning. The two sisters share one of the hotel beds, and most nights baby Everly wakes up in her playpen and insists on joining them. On a morning in mid-December, Everly sleeps in bed while her sisters take turns using the bathroom and rummaging through various backpacks, tote bags, suitcases just to get dressed. There are only 3 dresser drawers and 1 small closet that the 5 of them can share. Jameson supervises Easton's teeth-brushing efforts and deflates when Eden comes back inside and says she missed the bus. With just 1 car and Harris off to secure a check for the few days of delivery work he performed last week, money that should buy them tonight's hotel stay, it could be a while before Eden gets a ride to school. When Harris returns empty-handed, Jameson starts to panic. Harris says he can't cash the check until after 9 a.m., but he needs to be at his other job by 9:20. If he doesn't cash the check, they can't stay in the hotel tonight. If he doesn't work, they won't be able to pay for the hotel next week. It falls on me to figure out what comes next, Jameson says. Today, she was meant to get their food stamps and follow up on a job application. I'm juggling everything. Sometimes we're literally like just trying to survive. Everly whines. She wants to be held. She'd really like to walk around, but Jameson doesn't trust the hotel room floor. So the baby spends the day in her arms or napping on a bed. Harris eventually gets his check, but he only works a half a day. Jameson negotiates with the hotel manager and tidies up the room, stuffing away the tote bags and suitcases so her family has places to sit and sleep when they are all home again. Pretty soon, Easton is back from school. And then Eden. Jameson is exhausted. She doesn't know what they're going to do for dinner. I feel very mentally drained, Jameson says, even though I know there's still so much that needs to be done. Easton heats up a package of ramen noodles in the microwave. Eden takes a frozen chicken sandwich from the mini fridge, heats it up, settling on the same meal for both breakfast and dinner. Then she feeds Everly some yogurt. The family spends their evening cracking jokes and retelling old family stories. Jameson plays Beyonce's Texas Hold'em from her phone, bribing Eden to dance for them by promising she can see her boyfriend over the weekend. Manipulation at its peak, Eden says, moving Everly's playpen. I don't care, Jameson says, beaming at her firstborn. I love watching you dance. Tomorrow's Saturday. It'd be nice to go out and do something. We don't have any money, Jameson says. Maybe I'll go to the library. Maybe she'll donate plasma to pay for the next night's hotel stay. She thinks through her options, planning their days ahead, knowing her plans can be thwarted at any moment by a new emergency. Every plan, she says, plan A, B, C, D, E, F, that I have tried to keep from getting to this point has just fallen through.
ICE agents are surging into Minnesota. Fraud scandal prompts accelerated operations. From Christopher Kahn of USA Today. Federal immigration agents are surging into Minnesota, officials said, amid a deepening fraud scandal that's enveloped state and national politics. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Acting Director Todd Lyons described the deployment in an interview on Newsmax as the largest immigration operation ever. He did not say how many agents the deployment would involve or how long it was expected to last. Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told USA Today the agency does not get into law enforcement footprint for the safety of officers. The development comes as Hilton said it severed ties with a hotel franchise in Minneapolis that had allegedly canceled the reservations of ICE agents working in the area. The company apologized and said it would contact all of its franchises nationwide to reinforce the standards we hold them to and help ensure this does not happen again. Immigration agents have been operating in Minneapolis for several weeks as pressure ramps up amid the fraud scandal that has led to federal probes and political shakeups. According to McLaughlin, agents have made more than 1,000 arrests since first deploying resources to Minnesota. On December the 5th, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz announced he plans to end his re-election bid, saying the election would distract him from defending the people of Minnesota against the criminals who prey on our generosity. Since 2022, the Department of Justice has charged more than 80 people, many of them U.S. citizens of Somalia descent, in connection with fraud schemes targeting government-funded programs, including child nutrition and housing initiatives. At least 60 suspects have been convicted in multiple fraud cases in the state. In recent weeks, President Trump has seized on the scandal, calling out Walz and targeting the Somali population, at one point calling them garbage and telling reporters, "I don't want them in my country." In December, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security both announced a surge of federal agents tasked with tracking down fraudsters. Other federal agencies have also acted, including the Small Business Administration and the Department of Health and Human Services, freezing business loans and child care payments. The Twin Cities region is home to the largest Somali population in the United States, with about 84,000 residents, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The majority of Somalis in Minnesota are U.S. citizens who were born in the country or became citizens.
The United States seizes Venezuela-linked oil tanker. Natalie Nasa Alund of USA Today writes, following a more than 2-week pursuit, United States forces on January 7 seized a Venezuela-linked oil tanker escorted by a Russian submarine in the Atlantic Ocean for alleged violations of U.S. sanctions, the Trump administration confirmed. The vessel was seized in the North Atlantic pursuant to a warrant issued by a U.S. federal court after being tracked by the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Monroe. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt confirmed to reporters during a morning press briefing. U.S. forces had been attempting to board the vessel, named the Marinera, after U.S. leaders said it allegedly fled America's blockade of sanctioned vessels near Venezuela. 2 oil tankers, 2 overnight, were seized by the U.S. The United States of America's state list, or sanctioned because of the oil blockade. The quarantine of oil out of unsanctioned or stateless vessels continues, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth told reporters. That leverage will continue. Our military is prepared to continue this. So far, there have been no reported injuries to U.S. forces. We are prepared, under the right conditions, using the leverage that we have, which includes the fact that they cannot move any oil unless we allow them to move it, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters. Leavitt said the sanctioned oil would be arriving in the U.S. very soon, and the United States has already begun marketing crude oil and engaging American banks and marketers. All proceeds from the sale of Venezuelan crude oil and products will first settle in U.S.-controlled accounts at globally recognized banks to guarantee the legitimacy and integrity of distribution of proceeds. And those funds will be dispersed for the benefit of the American people and the Venezuelan people at the discretion of the U.S. government, Levitt said. Levitt also said there are no U.S. troops on the ground in Venezuela. Earlier in the day, U.S. forces captured another tanker named the Sophia, which officials said had been operating in international waters and conducting illicit activities in the Caribbean Sea. Levitt said the seizure took place without incident. The blockade of sanctioned and illicit Venezuelan oil remains in full effect anywhere in the world, Hegseth wrote in a post earlier in the day. Enforcing that blockade, however, may prove to be a tall task and lead to more seizures. In recent days, numerous ships have tried to evade U.S. ships in a simultaneous and seemingly coordinated attempt to rush past the blockade, according to the New York Times, which also reported that at least 3 tankers, in addition to the Marinera operating in the area, have adopted the Russian flag. The Marinera seizure, which involved a U.S. Coast Guard and naval forces, comes after the more than 2-week pursuit across the sea, as a Russian warship monitored close by, 2 U.S. officials told Reuters. The Coast Guard initially attempted to intercept the vessel, previously named the Bella 1, in December after it evaded a U.S. maritime blockade of sanctioned tankers and refused requests to be boarded. Since then, it has been registered under a Russian flag, the outlet reported. Later that day, Russia called the seizure a violation of maritime law, and a senior lawmaker described it as outright piracy. Russia's transport ministry said contact with the vessel, the Marinera, had been lost after U.S. naval forces boarded it near Iceland as part of efforts to block oil exports from Venezuela. In accordance with the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, freedom of navigation applies in the high seas, and no state has the right to use force against vessels duly registered in the jurisdictions of other states, the ministry released in a statement obtained by Reuters. January 3rd, the U.S. captured Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro and his wife in a surprise strike on the oil-rich country. The couples are now in federal custody in the U.S., facing federal drug trafficking charges. The seizure also comes less than a day after President Donald Trump announced Venezuela will turn up to 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the U.S. after his administration captured Maduro. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as the President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States, Trump wrote in a January 6th social media post.
Disgraced CIA officer spied for Russia. As a double agent, he damaged U.S. operations. From Theo Nguyen of USA Today. Aldrich Ames, a former counterintelligence officer for the CIA who gained notoriety as a double agent for the Soviet Union and later Russia, has died. He was 84. Ames, who was serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole at the Federal Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, has died January 5th, the Federal Bureau of Prisons confirmed to USA Today. The agency's inmate database did not list a cause of death or location of death. Ames has been described as one of the most damaging spies in U.S. counterintelligence history. As a double agent, the FBI said, Ames had compromised intelligence operations by leaking classified documents and the identities of CIA and FBI sources. Soviet authorities eventually executed some sources. In February of 1994, Ames was arrested by the FBI on charges of espionage. He later pleaded guilty to spying for Moscow and was sentenced to life in prison. At the time of his arrest, the FBI said Ames was a 31-year veteran of the CIA who was believed to have been spying for the Soviet Union and Russia since 1985. Federal authorities also accused Ames' wife, Rosario Ames, of aiding his espionage activities. Ames' actions made him one of the highest paid spies in history, according to the Center for Development of Security Excellence. He received a total of $4.6 million for his spying. His case drew widespread scrutiny over the vulnerabilities within the CIA and shook confidence in federal agencies. Born in River Falls, Wisconsin in 1941, Ames was the son of an alcoholic CIA officer. He later became a CIA case officer who specialized in Russian intelligence services, according to the FBI. During his career, Ames worked in New York City and other countries, including Turkey, Mexico, and Italy. He was assigned to the CIA's Soviet East European Division in 1985, where he secretly volunteered to the KGB officers at the USSR Embassy, Washington, D.C., according to the FBI.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45.
Continuing, the Center for Development of Security Excellence said Ames had been heavily in debt when he began selling classified information to the Soviet government. The information he provided led to the compromise of at least 100 U.S. intelligence operations and the execution of at least 10 U.S. sources, the center said. He ultimately gave the Soviet government the names of every American agent working in its country. The CIA and FBI were tipped off when they learned that agents were disappearing at an alarming rate, according to the Security Excellence Center. The FBI said it learned that Russian officials recruited by the United States were being arrested and executed. These human sources had provided critical intelligence information about the USSR, which was used by U.S. policymakers in determining U.S. foreign policy, according to the FBI. The FBI opened an investigation in May of 1993 after reviewing information on Ames' unexplained wealth, according to the agency. After a 10-month investigation and searches of Ames' residence, the FBI discovered documents and other information that tied Ames to the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. Ames was arrested in Arlington, Virginia in February of 1994. He confessed and pleaded guilty to charges of conspiracy to commit espionage and tax evasion in April of 1994.
Departures and sudden death are shrinking Trump's GOP majority. The gap with the Democrats narrows to 218 to 213. Zachary Shermill of USA Today writes, President Donald Trump's small Republican voting majority in the House of Representatives is getting even smaller, amid unexpected departures and a tragedy, further complicating their path for passing a GOP-focused agenda during an election year. California GOP Representative Doug LaMalfa died suddenly at the age of 65 on January 5th after suffering a medical emergency. His death, on the heels of Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's abrupt exit amid a public schism with Trump, brings the ratio of House Republicans to Democrats down to 218 to 213. 216 is the number needed for a majority. In addition, Representative Jim Baird, Republican from Indiana, was hospitalized this week alongside his wife following a car crash that Trump called a bad accident. His office said he is expected to make full recovery. Baird's temporary absence from the Capitol will complicate Speaker Mike Johnson's job of keeping Republicans in line amid a midterm election year when Democrats are trying to remain unified as they try to win back the House majority. Trump acknowledged the hard political math during a retreat with House Republicans at the Kennedy Center on January 6. It's not a big majority, the second-term president told lawmakers, but it is a unified majority. Yet, between the forced vote on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files and disagreements over lowering health care costs, the GOP actually has not been entirely aligned in recent months. Johnson's current and slim two-vote margin includes Kentucky Republican Representative Thomas Massie, who frequently bucks his party and has already been posing issues for GOP leaders as they've struggled to maintain control of legislation hitting the floor of the chamber they're supposed to oversee. It remains to be seen whether Republicans will be able to retain the House in the 2026 elections. But the trends aren't in their favor. Historically, the party in power does lose seats. Democratic overperformance in last year's off-year and special elections likely spells trouble. The most high-profile departure from Johnson's ranks came in November when Marjorie Taylor Greene said she'd had enough of Washington politics. Her final day in office, January 5, ending for now a career where she was often one of Trump's most outspoken allies. Back in Washington, the House will soon start getting replacements for its vacancies. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp has set a March 10 special election to fill the rest of Greene's expiring term. Greene's retirement was part of a record number of exit announcements from House lawmakers of both parties. In Texas, GOP Governor Greg Abbott has set a special election to replace Democratic Representative Sylvester Turner, who died in March of last year. A runoff there is set for January 31st. New Jersey, Democrats will have to wait until April to fill the seat of Mickey Sherrill, a former congresswoman scheduled to be sworn in on January 20 as the governor of her state. Looking toward 2026, exactly how the gambits of both parties may redraw their congressional maps to keep or secure a majority next November isn't clear either. GOP lawmakers in Indiana ultimately rejected a pressure campaign from the White House to redistrict. The Republican Speaker of the Kansas House recently said the votes likely aren't not there in his state either.
Turning to the money section of USA Today, raid unlikely to lower gas prices. From Andrea Require of USA Today. As policy experts continue to debate the ethical and legal ramifications of the weekend raid that captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, Americans may be worried about the effects to their own pocketbooks. For now, experts say don't expect any changes when you fill up at the pump. Many folks are far too optimistic that this will have immediate and measurable effect, said Patrick Dehan, head of petroleum analysis at GasBuddy. It is unlikely. It is unlikely. It would take years, and even then, the impacts may be more measured in pennies per gallon than dimes. Commodities analysts at Goldman Sachs agreed, calling the outlook for prices ambiguous in the near term in a research report published on January the 4th. Production may edge up slightly in the short run, including in a scenario with a U.S.-supported government and full sanctions relief, the Goldman team explained. Alternatively, disruptions to Venezuelan oil deliveries could continue and or intensify in the short term, for instance, because Maduro's cabinet has asserted its control. The Venezuelan leader and his wife arrived in New York on January 3rd to face several criminal charges after U.S. forces captured them in Caracas. President Trump said in a news conference that very large oil companies will spend billions of dollars in Venezuela, which has the largest oil reserves of any nation worldwide. The oil business has been a total bust, Trump said of Venezuela's oil, which is produced and controlled by a government-run company. They were pumping almost nothing in. Very large U.S. oil companies will go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, and start making money for the country, Trump said. But even under what GasBuddy's Dehan called the most optimistic timelines, it will take years for oil supply to enter the world market. He and others wonder how much incentive major oil companies have to even tackle such a project, given the geopolitical risks and the steep costs to ramp up production. Independent energy analyst Rachel Ziemba, who agrees major oil companies may hesitate, also notes that declines in the price of crude, the raw material for consumer products such as gasoline, often are not fully passed on to consumers. For example, crude prices were down nearly 20% in 2025, yet gas prices fell less than 10%, she said. On January the 5th, crude prices were up about 1.5% after the weekend raid. The Goldman analysts are forecasting only a $2 per barrel change, either up or down. Meanwhile, depending on whether the more optimistic or pessimistic scenario comes to pass, that represents only about a 4% change to their base case forecast of $56 a barrel for Brent crude, the world benchmark. This won't be as smooth or easy as the administration is indicating, Ziemba told USA Today. The bottom line for consumers? The potential for additional oil may stabilize oil in the years to come, but don't expect gas price parties with the national average below $2 a gallon anytime soon, according to Dahan.
Wegmans' use of biometric data spurs concerns. The New York City stores two New York City stores are collecting information. Marcia Greenwood of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle writes, a move by Wegmans Food Markets to collect biometric data on shoppers at its two New York City stores has raised concerns about how the information is going to be used and stored, and whether the grocery store chain is gathering data at other locations. As first reported by Gothamist.com, newly posted signs in the windows of Wegmans stores in Manhattan and Brooklyn state the biometric data collection is underway and may include facial recognition, eye scans, and voice prints. The data is being used to protect the safety and security of our patrons and employees, according to the signs. Two customers interviewed by Gothamist reporter Liam Quigley said that in the future they will shop elsewhere because of the practice. Excuse me. In a January 5th letter to Wegmans, CEO Colleen Wegman, Monroe County legislator Rachel Barnard wrote, public awareness of Wegmans' biometric data practices has emerged because New York City's biometric disclosure law requires retailers to reveal when such technology is in use. Reporting on Wegmans' New York City locations has made it clear that biometric surveillance, including facial recognition, is operating in grocery stores where customers have no practical opportunity to provide informed consent or meaningfully opt out. You've been listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, January the 8th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from you from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Ken Drost.
and Jim Duffy. And moving on to our sports page, this is an opinion piece from Nate Davis of USA Today. Seahawks' biggest threat to win Super Bowl 60. Then there were 14. The NFL playoff field is finally set. The Pittsburgh Steelers winning the 272nd final game of the 2025 regular season and claiming the last spot in the tournament that will feed into Super Bowl 60 on February the 8th. It just takes a little belief at this point in the season, said Pittsburgh quarterback Aaron Rodgers, following the victory, the four-time league MVP back in the postseason for the first time in 4 years, and in pursuit of his first championship since he led the Green Bay Packers to victory in Super Bowl 45. It's good to be a part of the 14 after so many years. Nice to be back in this position. Excuse me. Yet, how good is the positioning of the Steelers and the other 13 playoff qualifiers, and what's seemingly shaping up as a wide-open road to the Lombardi Trophy? We've ranked them all, from worst to best, in terms of their championship viability. Number 14, the Carolina Panthers. Congratulations are certainly in order for a team that's reached the postseason for the first time in 8 years by supplanting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers atop the NFC South. Now let's get real. The Panthers have won once since their Week 14 bye and lost to the Bucs on Saturday, January the 3rd. Carolina was then literally backed into the field Sunday by the Atlanta Falcons. Their four-game heater to end the season, creating a three-way tie atop the division, a deadlock that conferred the decisive tiebreaker to the Panthers. Carolina, which is with an 8-9 record, became just the fifth team in league history to win a division title despite a losing record. None of the previous ones got past the divisional round. And while QB Bryce Young will occasionally explode with an eye-popping performance, those are basically one-offs. The third-year passer throwing for as many as 200 yards just 4 times this season. Simply put, virtually impossible to envision a scenario where this club goes on a 3 or 4 game run against the league's best competition. Number 13, the Los Angeles Chargers. They're physical. They play tough defense. They have statistically got the most accurate kicker by far in league history in Cameron Dicker. And they're coached by Jim Harbaugh, who has championship experience and piloted the 49ers to Super Bowl 47 in his second year in San Francisco. But the Bolts would have to win 3 times on the road in order to reach Super Bowl 60. QB Justin Herbert has endured 2 unsightly losses in his 2 previous playoff appearances. And could be subject to another one, playing behind an offensive line that's been patchworked with bubble gum and bawling wire for years. Even Dicker has gone relatively cold, missing a field goal and an extra point in the team's 4-point loss to Houston in Week 17, the one that relegated LA to its wild card route. It also seems a folly to trust a franchise, one that's never won a Super Bowl, which lost by at least 14 points in 4 of its 6 defeats this season. Number 12, the Green Bay Packers. Absent from the Super Bowl Sunday stage since Rodgers last took them, the Pack entered the postseason as a number 7 seed, meaning like the Chargers, they'll need to be road warriors tasked with facing the conference's top seeds if they continue to advance for the 3rd straight year under current QB number 1 Jordan Love. And while he led Green Bay on a lovely run 2 years ago, falling just shy of the NFC Championship game, this edition seems more akin to the battered crew that went one and done in the 2024 postseason. It's hard to look much further than the defensive end Micah Parsons, supposedly the missing piece who would bring another title to Titletown. And he might yet, but obviously he won't do it this season after tearing his ACL on December 14th. The Packers haven't won since he went down, currently on a 4-game skid that's seen Love get concussed while the defense has effectively disintegrated. Better luck in 2026, fellas. Number 11, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe you'd heard they haven't won a playoff game in 9 years. Maybe you've heard that they've fallen into at least a 21-point hole in each of their 6 postseason losses over that duration. Maybe you've heard Rodgers has lost 4 of his last 6 playoff
Would it be a shock if Pittsburgh, which will get receiver
DK Metcalf, back from his suspension this week, beats the Texans by the confluence of the three rivers on Monday night? Not really. The Steelers are a team laden with accomplished veterans who showed again in Sunday night's thrilling victory over the arch-rival Baltimore Ravens that they shouldn't be taken lightly. But a lot of those vets are graybeards on the back ends of their careers. Very few of them will with actual Super Bowl experience, and none likely to get any now. Number 10, our Buffalo Bills. As I mentioned at the beginning of this article, this is an opinion piece. Did you know they haven't won a playoff game on the road since the 1992 playoffs? That alone should stir skepticism of a team that's reached the past 7 postseasons. But more concerning than ancient history is recent history, namely the foot injury QB Josh Allen suffered in Week 16. He hasn't looked the same since, despite his claims to the contrary. Maybe effectively taking Week 18 off will be a major benefit, but no team is more reliant on one player than Buffalo is on Allen. The Bills already had ample issues: no alpha receiver, kicking game inconsistencies, and an inability to stop the run. But if Allen isn't close to 100%, everything else is mute. Number 9, the San Francisco 49ers. Had they beaten Seattle on Saturday night, then the 49ers wouldn't have taken another road trip for the rest of the season, a California Gold Rush opportunity to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs and potentially host Super Bowl 60 in their own building, Levi Stadium. Instead, a team that has averaged 35.7 points during its 6-game winning streak was nearly shut out by the victorious Seahawks. Worse, the 49ers, already depleted by injuries this season, were physically manhandled by Seattle and will be less than fresh physically as they embark on a cross-country trip to face the reigning Super Bowl champion Eagles. Running back Christian McCaffrey, in particular, seems to be wearing down after handling a league-high and career-high 413 touches. A huge burden, but probably a necessary one to keep this team afloat. This is a battle-tested team, one that's played in 4 conference championships and 2 Super Bowls under coach Kyle Shanahan. It's also one that could be out of gas, problematic, given a short-handed defense, since the Niners would probably continue needing to win shootouts in order to stave off elimination. Number 8, the New England Patriots. Admittedly, this seems low for a team seated second in the AFC. What's not to like, you ask, about a team that wouldn't have to hit the road for any earlier than the conference title round? After all, if second-year QB Drake May isn't the league MVP, then he'll almost certainly be the runner-up. Mike Vrabel, who has won 3 Super Bowl rings with the Pats as an all-pro linebacker and was a member of the club that went 16-0 in the 2007 regular season, not only knows what success looks like in January, he's a brilliant tactician as a head coach, one generally beloved by his players. Yet it's just hard to shake the notion that May doesn't have a premier weapon. He has not always adequately protected himself, and the defense doesn't generate all that much pressure or explosive plays in general. And it must be reiterated that while the Patriots won 14 games, only one was against an opponent that finished the season above 500. Equally worrisome, purely in a football context here, is a possibility that the legal issues have caught up to wide receiver Stephon Diggs and defensive tackle Christian Barmore will not only serve as continued distractions for the team at large, but could take one or both players off the field at some point in the coming weeks.
The Chicago Bears. They've been fueled by a fiery, hotshot rookie head coach, Ben Johnson, and a quarterback drafted number 1 overall, Caleb Williams. If one who recently faced questions about unfulfilled, unreasonable expectations, they are committed to the run, but get plenty of big plays from their passing game and special teams. And how about that defense and all the turnovers it generates? Also, doesn't hurt to know you're guaranteed at least 2 home playoff games as long as you're alive. But the Bears have been something of a high-wire act all season and don't exactly carry momentum into the playoffs. Losing their past 2 games and last winning one in regulation on December 14, Williams is a playmaker who tends to rise to the occasion, engineering a league-best 6 fourth-quarter comebacks this season. but not yet through his second NFL season. He still is not a volume passer or one who's known for a high completion rate, 58.1% in 2025. The Bears generally seem way ahead of schedule under Johnson, but it's expecting a lot to hope a team so reliant on big plays and good fortune is the one that will win the organization's first Super Bowl in 40 years. Next, at 6, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, they've been fueled by a fiery, hotshot rookie head coach, Liam Cohen, and a quarterback drafted number 1 overall in Trevor Lawrence, if one who recently faced questions about unfulfilled, unreasonable expectations. They're committed to the run, but get plenty of big plays from their passing game and special teams. And how about that defense and all the turnovers it generates? It also does not hurt to know you're guaranteed at least one home playoff game as long as you're alive. Winners of 8 in a row. There's every reason to believe the Jags will continue hanging around for a while. And if winning league MVP honors was predicated on post-Thanksgiving performance, by the way, it's not, then Lawrence would be a shoo-in. His surge has coincided with wide receiver Jacoby Myers, a midseason acquisition, getting comfortable in the offense. And good luck to Bills running back James Cook, the newly crowned rushing champ, about to face the league's top-ranked run defense. The Jags generally seem way ahead of schedule under Cohen, and the stars may just be aligning in a way that this team could be the one to win the organization's first Super Bowl ever. Number 5, the Denver Broncos. Are they the 5th best team in the field? Maybe. Maybe not. I'd argue, am I actually arguing with myself here, that perhaps it's a bit too lofty for the AFC West champions, who had one impressive win in the season's second half. But this is a discussion about Lombardi viability. And what's inarguable about the Broncos is that they have home field advantage and need only win 2 more games to reach the Super Bowl for the first time in 10 years. To be clear, no shade intended toward a team that just won 14 games and dislodged the Kansas City Chiefs from their long-held divisional throne. Yet the Broncos are still a young crew, one that was thoroughly outclassed during its playoff return at Buffalo a year ago. Denver can hang its hat on an intimidating defense, an outstanding offensive line, and a championship-caliber coach in Sean Payton. Yet, the offense consistently has to dig out of second-half holes. Maybe because second-year quarterback Bo Nix seems to have plateaued after a strong rookie season. Maybe because he just doesn't have elite playmakers around him. Maybe it's the combination thereof. Given the kind of season it's been league-wide, it certainly would not be a shock if the Broncos win it all. But it would be far less surprising if they're one and done. At number 4, the Houston Texans. Home or away, rain or shine, defense travels. And whether you're looking at the tape, the stat sheet, the Texans rank number 1 overall defensively and second in points allowed. Or, watching it get off the bus, this is as daunting a unit as there is in the league. At the vanguard, defensive ends Will Anderson Jr. and Daniel Hunter, the only duo in the league with at least a dozen sacks apiece in 2025. Did we mention no team is hotter? Houston carrying a 9-game winning streak into the postseason. Now, relatively speaking, on the other side of the ball, a middling offense hasn't been nearly as good. Still, quarterback C.J. Stroud, the offensive rookie of the year in 2023, has generally rebounded from something of a sophomore slump in 2024. Nico Collins, who took Week 18 off, is one of the league's standout wideouts. Also, middling is just fine in offense if the defense is in its typical form. The Texans needing 23 points or fewer in half of their 12 wins.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:15.
Another franchise in pursuit of its first championship and first appearance in the AFC Championship game. Now, this could certainly be the season the Texans break through. And lest you've forgotten, Houston isn't some ramshackle Johnny-come-lately outfit emerging from the previously lowly AFC South. This is a seasoned squad under coach DeMeco Ryans, one that's reached the divisional round 2 years running and gave the dynastic Chiefs pretty much all they could handle at Arrowhead last January. In position number 3, Philadelphia Eagles. Off the top, now this team isn't as good as the one that cruised past Kansas City in Super Bowl 59. Philly can't even count on the tush-push anymore. So what? Despite the drama that's followed the Eagles all season, doesn't it always, they've played much better over the past months and regained confidence. The run game has improved. Quarterback Jalen Hurts is back to his winning less is more formula. Defensive tackle Jalen Carter returned from shoulder surgery. And offensive lineman Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson likely will play Sunday against the 49ers. And criticize Coach Nick Sirianni all you want, but resting his starters in Week 18 a year ago, that was a strategy that paid off. Special teams could be an Achilles. Otherwise, a team that's played in 2 of the past 3 Super Bowls appears as well positioned as any to reach another one. And next, the Los Angeles Rams, position number 2. Now, their 38-37 overtime loss to the Seahawks in Week 16 effectively cost them the number 1 seed, and it took the wind out of their collective sails late in the season. The Rams seemingly sleepwalking through a good chunk of their Week 17 loss at Atlanta also. But Coach Sean McVay got a much sharper performance from his troops Sunday against Arizona. More important, left tackle Alaric Jackson rejoined the lineup, and wide receiver Devontae Adams and defensive back Quentin Lake are going to follow suit for Saturday's game in Charlotte. And so might rear guard Kevin Dotson. As the injuries resolve, so too should the performance of a team that's routinely been overwhelming on both sides of the ball. And though it's a small sample size, the troubled special teams have stabilized and excelled in spots since veteran assistant Ben Kotwika was promoted to coordinate them following the unit's debacle in Seattle. Los Angeles lost to the Panthers in Week 13. The run defense too frequently gashed. But the Rams are the decidedly superior team, the only one that put a scare into the elite Eagles juggernaut in last season's playoffs, and one very well equipped to go all the way this time around. Oh yeah, quarterback Matthew Stafford was the league's premier player last year, and wide receiver Puka Nacua was not far behind. And finally, who takes it all? Number 1, the Seattle Seahawks. They roll into their well-deserved bye week after racking up victories in their past 7 games. That's the lengthiest active winning streak in the NFC. Seattle, similar to Houston, physically and schematically dominant on defense and more than adequate on offense. But this may be the time, also, to give Seattle more credit on that side of the ball. It's not always pretty, but quarterback Sam Darnold was deserving of his second Pro Bowl nod in as many years. Yeah, he's prone to making a costly turnover, but he's also shown he's not just along for the ride and is more than capable of winning big games with his arm. He's certainly got the trust and respect of his teammates. He's also got Jackson Smith-Njigba, the NFL's most productive receiver this season, with 1,793 receiving yards. Newly extended left tackle Charles Cross will also be back for the divisional round after missing 3 games with a bum hamstring. But what might terrify Seattle's opponents even more than boisterous Lumen Field, where the Seahawks have won 10 of their past 11 playoff games, it's a surging rushing attack that's exceeded 160 yards each of the past 3 weeks and has averaged better than 140 over the past 9 games. Good luck finding a better group of special teamers, especially after the mid-season addition of wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, a dynamic returner. And oh, that defense, the league's stingiest in terms of points allowed and one that can restlessly and relentlessly send waves of fresh pass rushers and defensive backs at opposing quarterbacks. A rubber match with the Rams in the NFC title game sure would be fun. And similar to the Broncos, but unlike the Rams, the Seahawks would only need 1 win to reach that stage.
Ty Simpson declares for NFL draft after Tide's CFP quarterfinal run, from John Liuzzi of the USA Today Network. Ty Simpson is off to the NFL draft. The Alabama football quarterback announced on social media on Wednesday, January 7th, that he's declaring for the NFL draft. It was reported by the Tuscaloosa News, part of the USA Today Network, and ESPN's Pete Thamel on January 7th that the 6'2" quarterback informed Kalen DeBoer and the Crimson Tide staff on Wednesday that he is moving on to the next chapter of his playing career. Growing up in a small town like Martin, Tennessee didn't stop me from having big dreams. But man, that first visit from Coach Saban was surreal. The legend was in our house, eating my mom's cooking, painting a picture of what it would like to be to play for the Crimson Tide. Coach told me straight up it wasn't going to be easy, but he told me if I trusted the process, it would be a ride worth taking, Simpson said in a heartfelt video on Instagram. I chose Alabama then, and I'd do it 1,000 times over. The decision comes less than a week after Alabama struggled in the college football playoff Rose Bowl quarterfinal against number 1 Indiana. Simpson did not finish the Crimson Tide's 38-3 loss to the Hoosiers, as he was pulled out by DeBoer following Alabama's first drive in the second half for what was called a coach's decision after Simpson cracked his rib after taking a helmet to it during a quarterback run in the second quarter. A longtime backup at Alabama, Simpson led the Crimson Tide to an 11-4 record and the program's first CFP appearance since Nick Saban's retirement in his lone season as a Crimson Tide starting quarterback. He finished the season 305 of 473 passing attempts, which was 64.5%, for 3,567 yards and 28 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He finished first in the SEC in completions with 305 and second in the SEC in both touchdown passes, 28, and passing yards, 3,567. Once seen as the Heisman Trophy betting favorite in the middle of the season, after leading Alabama to 4 consecutive wins against top 15 ranked opponents, Simpson ended up not finishing in the top 10 of Heisman Trophy voting. A 5-star recruit and the number 3 ranked quarterback in the 2022 recruiting class, Simpson finishes with 3,948 career passing yards and 33 total touchdowns in his 4 seasons with the Crimson Tide. There's no journey like the one I'm on now. 4 years of grinding, growing up, and a whole lot of prayer to the man above, and learning, as Coach Saban said, to become process-oriented. There was temptation along the way, temptation to find an easier path. But when you choose Alabama football, there is a responsibility and pride that comes with it. It's something you feel deep down. It's not a choice to stay at Alabama. You just are Alabama, or you're not, Simpson cautioned. Or he continued. Let me correct myself there. He continued. It wasn't all perfect. It didn't have to be, but every moment had meaning, and I gave Alabama my all, and I got so much more in return. Coach Saban was right. It was all worth it. I am proud to be a part of this legacy, to have chosen to be where my feet are, to have learned that you can't be anybody but yourself, and to strive to be the best version of yourself every single day. I'll cherish all of it as I take the next step for preparing for the NFL draft. It will always and forever be about Bama. Roll Tide. He is currently projected to go number 3 overall to the Arizona Cardinals in USA Today Sports and Trent Ostley's latest NFL mock draft. And number 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers in USA Today Sports, Michael Biden-Hirsch-Schwartz's latest mock draft. Simpson is ranked as Mel Kiper Jr.'s number 3 ranked quarterback in this year's NFL draft class as well.
Big week for the United States ski and snowboard hopefuls. Chris Bumbaka of USA Today writes a really lousy headline. Qualifying at the 2026 U.S. Grand Prix in Aspen, Colorado began Wednesday, January 7th, as the United States ski and snowboard team takes another step in naming its roster for the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics. The World Cup event is going to serve as a chance for American shredders to punch their ticket to Italy. The event will include slopestyle and half-pipe events for both men and women. There is no big air competition in Aspen. It's the official kickoff of the slopestyle season for Team USA. Stars Red Gerard and Chloe Kim are among those who have already clinched their spots. So here's everything you need to know about the action in Aspen. The header is no snow, no problem. It's been a challenging season in Colorado and the entire American West in general for snowfall. Competition organizers moved the slopestyle course from Buttermilk, where the halfpipe is located, to nearby Snowmass on December 25. The course was operational by the first day of practice on January 4th. And the best news, organizers reported a foot of snow overnight on the morning of January 6th. The massive 22-foot tall halfpipe, the Olympic qualifying standard, is nearly 550 feet in length and 70 feet wide and has an 18-degree pitch. It's in good condition, and organizers wanted Buttermilk looking pristine for its turn, hosting X Games from January 23 through 25. So, what's the difference between halfpipe and slopestyle? Halfpipe means boarders and skiers drop into the U-shaped ditch and try to perform 5 tricks that are judged. The highest score wins. Slopestyle. Boarders and skiers do tricks while going down the mountain using jumps and obstacles. They are judged, and the highest score wins. Now, Team USA athletes to watch at Aspen Grand Prix. Jamie Anderson, women's snowboarding, trying to come back after briefly retiring and having 2 children. Alex Ferreira, men's freeski. He already qualified for the Games and was the winner of the most recent World Cup in Copper Mountain, Colorado. Alex Hall, men's freeski. The reigning Olympic gold medalist in slopestyle. He also won at Aspen last year. Mac Forehand, men's freeski, has made the podium at this event before and was a 2022 Olympian. He won silver in slopestyle at the 2025 World Championship. Oliver Martin, men's snowboarding and slopestyle and halfpipe, the 2025 World Championships double bronze medalist, heads to Aspen after a 3rd place in Big Air at Steamboat Spring, Colorado, just this past December. Next is Red Gerard, men's snowboarding slopestyle halfpipe. The 2018 slopestyle gold medal winner, now 25 years old, is looking to get back on top. Alejandro Barbieri, men's snowboarding and halfpipe. His 3rd place finish in Calgary last season is the only podium result by an American man in this discipline in almost 3 years. The last rider from the USA to win a halfpipe World Cup was Shaun White, whose career victory came at Buttermilk Sister Resort, Snowmass, January of 2018. Maddie Shafrick, women's snowboarding, slopestyle, stepped away for nearly a decade and was an assistant coach on the 2022 Olympic team before re-entering high-level competition.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:30.
And to wrap up, who are the international stars? China's Su Yiming, men's snowboard, slopestyle, former child actor, won back-to-back Big Air World Cups at the end of last year. In women's free ski slopestyle, Mathilde Grimaud of Switzerland is the reigning Olympic champion. Half-pipe stars like Ayumu Hirano from Japan, Scotty James from Australia, and Chloe Kim from the United States already qualified and are not on the initial starting lists. And who has qualified for the Olympics? Men's freeski, Alex Hall, Alex Ferreira, Nick Gepper, Quinn Dellinger, Troy Podmilsak. Women's freeski, Jalen Kauf. Men's snowboarding, Red Gerard. Women's snowboarding, Chloe Kim. And finally, when is the United States Olympic ski snowboard team announced? A formal ceremony will be in downtown Aspen at 6 p.m. local time, January 10th, after the second and the last day of finals. But the qualification season will continue after Aspen.
Dolphins face decision with Harbaugh available. Excuse me. From Hal Habib of the Palm Beach Post and the USA Today Network. The news that John Harbaugh, a Super Bowl winning coach of the Baltimore Ravens, is out after 18 seasons will force Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross to make a decision. Is he confident Mike McDaniel can turn around the Dolphins in his 5th season, or should he pursue Harbaugh? It's too early to tell if there's interest by either party, but it's highly unlikely Ross would court a coach named Harbaugh while he has another coach under contract. That happened once before, when Ross was linked to Harbaugh's brother Jim, despite having Tony Sparano as a Dolphins coach. In the NFL, such flirtations are considered a faux pas, a lesson Ross learned in those early days of team ownership. The Dolphins just concluded a 7-10 season, missing the playoffs for the 2nd consecutive year. Strong indications are they expect to continue with McDaniel as coach next year. My understanding is that I am the coach of the Miami Dolphins and until told otherwise. McDaniel said to open his end-of-season news conference on January the 5th. The Dolphins have not issued a formal statement on Ross's behalf, saying McDaniel will return, but traditionally, clubs making a coaching change don't ask the departing leader to face the media on his way out. Even if the Dolphins are interested in hiring Harbaugh, there's no guarantee that will happen. His agent, Brian Harlan, told ESPN's Adam Schefter that within 45 minutes of Harbaugh's firing Tuesday, January the 6th, 7 NFL teams called to show interest. There are 6 NFL openings, excluding the Ravens. The Dolphins, who are conducting interviews for their general manager position, are not thought to be among those 7 teams, calling Harlan, a league source told the Palm Beach Post. Ross has channeled millions into the University of Michigan, the alma mater he shares with Jim Harbaugh, helping explain why their names have been linked throughout the years. Before the 2011 season, Ross flew to California to meet with then Stanford coach Jim Harbaugh, the current Los Angeles Chargers coach. To smooth over feelings with the slighted Sparano, Ross gave his coach an extension and a raise. It didn't work. Sparano lasted only 13 games into that season before being replaced on an interim basis by Todd Bowles. He could never put it behind him, Ross said on Miami radio station 790, The Ticket 2 years later. I don't think he was the right head coach for the Miami Dolphins. I didn't hire him. We're a much better organization today than them. Ross's respect for John Harbaugh also ran deep. In 2019, before Ross replaced Adam Gase with Brian Flores, the Post, citing an informed source, reported Ross had a burning interest in John Harbaugh. Media speculation at the time was that Ross might pursue Harbaugh if the Ravens didn't extend his contract. Months after Harbaugh signed an extension, the Ravens opened the season against the Dolphins. Speaking to South Florida reporters before that game, Harbaugh said neither he nor his agent had contact with the Dolphins while his future hung in the balance. McDaniel said during his season-ending news conference that he and Ross plan to meet in the coming days. "We are getting together later in the week to discuss what needs to be discussed," McDaniel said. "We both share the sentiment that we're not where we want to be. And in this business, you have to have a plan and a plan of action to improve that play. I think those discussions are very important and healthy, and I think the fan base is counting on that to occur." Harbaugh, who is 63, has a regular season record of 180 and 113, which is a .614 percentage, and is 13-11 in the postseason, including a Super Bowl victory in the 2012 season. In 11 of his 18 seasons, his teams had double-digit victories. In 12 seasons, they reached the playoffs. 4 times they reached the AFC Championship game. The Ravens were 8-9 this season, missing the playoffs for the first time in 4 years because of a late missed field goal attempt and a 26-24 loss to the rival Pittsburgh Steelers in the season finale.
So let's move on to the life section. And I'm going to start with, let's see an article, if I can get the paper open here, on streaming. Sapide Moafi infuses the pit with new blood. Brian Alexander of USA Today writes the article. The new star of the pit, Sapide Moafi, is just like us when it comes to watching bloody ER operations on the hit HBO Max medical series. It's tough, especially seeing them up close on the realistic Los Angeles set. However, Moafi, 40, has to stay in character as the new attending physician, Dr. Baran al-Hashimi, in season 2 of the series, which premieres, by the way, January 8. An organ-revealing operation on a patient, in reality, a strikingly realistic body prosthetic seen in episode 1, demanded real acting fortitude. Oh my gosh. This was my day 2, Moafi tells USA Today. It's really hard with blood. I am not a fan. Beyond that, it's the level of detail. I was grappling with being Sapide Moafi, watching this outrageous prosthetic where somebody's entire torso is split in half while still playing a doctor who hasn't seen much worse. The Iranian-American actress who starred as Gigi Gorbani on The L Word, Generation Q, and as the sex worker Loretta on HBO's The Deuce, concedes she never would have made it through the pit auditions if medical skills had been required. I'm completely useless there. I'm praying to the goddess that I know what I am doing, Moafi says, but my character is more than competent. It's the palpable competency, even while overseeing graphic medical procedures, that makes Moafi perfect as the new ER boss, alongside the soon-to-be departing Dr. Michael Rabinovich, played by Noah Wiley. In season 2, overwhelmed attending physician Robbie eyes a motorcycle sabbatical after the drama of harrowing season 1, and will hand the reins over to al-Hashimi after one final shift. I wanted a character who could go toe-to-toe with Robbie. Someone competent and confident, says executive producer R. Scott Gemmel. You believe Sapide as a doctor, as an attending physician, and as someone who can give Robbie a run for his money. With her new ideas, including the incorporation of AI, al-Hashimi brings fresh ideas to the old-school ER. The often competing ideologies create immediate dissonance between the two doctors, Moafi says. This friction gives way to moments of flirtatious tensions with Robbie that are so clear that questions arise. Are the two doctors becoming a couple? I can assure there will be no broom closets involved, Moafi says. The way I pictured it when I read the scripts was that we are two animals in the wild, sort of circling, sniffing each other out. Sometimes they stop and stare. They're curious. But that's the dynamic, something explosive, but all under the surface. She's used to high stress and men undercutting her. There's something about Dr. Robbie that's unique. During the audition process, Moafi flew to LA for a chemistry test, a reading with Noah Wyle to secure casting approval. The duo worked so well together, so instantly, that Wyle suggested they just roll the cameras. It was so sweet. Noah was like, "Do we need to rehearse this?" And I was like, "I prefer not to." So we just played on camera, Moafi says. It took 4 days before I found out that I got the role. Once I did, it's been off like a bullet. Al-Hashimi's compassion for the pit patients comes naturally to Moafi, who was born in a German refugee camp after her family fled Iran. Part of Al-Hashimi's backstory involves working as a humanitarian doctor with Doctors Without Borders. That was a role inspired by Moafi's own humanitarian work, which includes serving as an ambassador for the International Rescue Committee. I can't separate that part of myself, my identity, she says. But as any American woman of color, it's the different layers, the different textures that we bring to American culture. So are fans going to see Moafi sing opera on the pit? One notable personality trait that likely will not be incorporated into the gritty medical series is Moafi's opera singing. That's a passion that exploded in high school after performing Vivaldi's choral masterpiece Gloria. The talented singer was on a path to an opera career and actually received a full scholarship to the San Francisco Conservatory of Music before acting took over. Working on her first major acting gig, ABC's 2014 psychological medical drama, Black Box, the creators gave Moafi's Dr. Farah Mahmood a showcase moment to sing Puccini's O mio bambino caro. She recalls it as, random, but so fun. I might be concerned if they start writing an opera moment in the pit, she says. That'd be weird, but I'm game. After immersing herself in the medical world, it becomes part of your DNA. It infects you. Moafi also was prepared if she's mistaken for a true medical professional and asked to help in a real-life emergency. There are some caveats. Look, I could probably guide you through setting up an IV or a tracheostomy, but I'm not touching anybody, Moafi says. I'll be the robot telling you what to do. I won't do it.
Cozy up to a new season of favorite shows. From Kelly Lawler of USA Today. New year, new TV. January is a time of New Year's resolutions, new school semesters, and new beginnings. And Hollywood, of course, would like you to focus on some other newness, new TV shows and seasons. The early months of the year have become home to some of the biggest premieres around, from the highly anticipated new seasons of Emmy winner The Pitt and fan favorite Bridgerton on HBO Max and Netflix, respectively, to such high-profile spin-offs as HBO's A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and Paramount Plus's Star Trek, Starfleet Academy. And those are just shows premiering in January. So as you cozy up in warm blankets this winter, enjoy these 10 shows that are worth spending time with. Whether you're looking to explore the galaxy or simply see some familiar network TV faces, there's something here for everyone. First, The Pitt on HBO Max, just starting January the 8th, Thursdays from 9 Eastern Time. Are you ready to clock back in for your shift? The second season of the critically acclaimed drama set in a Pittsburgh emergency room is one of the most anticipated TV returns in years, set once more during a single ER shift, with each episode occurring in real time over its hour length. Pitt brings back all of its energy, tension, and cast chemistry. The new season sees Noah Wiley's Dr. Robbie trying to survive a shift on July 4th, a notoriously busy day for any hospital. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:45. Next is Industry on HBO, start on January the 11th, Sundays at 9 Eastern Time. This acerbic and definitely witty drama returns for its fourth season on HBO, which is just as brilliant as the first three. Set in the high-stakes world of London finance, the new season will feature last year's very happy addition of Kit Harington, returning, as well as a slew of high-profile new additions this year, including Max Minghella from The Handmaid's Tale and Tohiba Jaimo from Ted Lasso, Kiernan Shipka from The Men, and Charlie Heaton from Stranger Things, and Kel Penn. Next is The Night Manager on Prime Video, streaming Sundays starting January the 11th. Not to be confused with Netflix's more recent The Night Agent, a new season streaming February 19th. Manager is a slick crime drama starring Tom Hiddleston that last aired on AMC in the United States a decade ago, based on the John le Carre novel of the same name. Now it's back on Amazon, in one of two planned additional seasons of the series that will go beyond the story of the book. Hiddleston returns as a titular character, a soldier turned night manager of a swanky hotel turned spy. In the new episodes, he's a low-level M16 officer in London sent on another undercover mission by Olivia Colman's Angela Burr. Next is Star Trek Starfleet Academy on Paramount Plus, streaming Thursdays starting January 15th. The newest Star Trek series on Paramount Plus is boldly going where none have gone before. A school in San Francisco, set in the academy that all our favorite officers from Kirk to Spock to Picard had to attend before their adventures in space. The new drama follows a class of cadets in training, both at the school and on a starship. It is set in the very distant future for those keeping track of all the timelines of the various Trek series. The post-apocalyptic one first introduced in Paramount Plus' Star Trek Discovery. The cast features mostly new faces as the eager young officer wannabes, but also includes the likes of Holly Hunter, Paul Giamatti, Tiana Maslany, and Stephen Colbert as the voice of a digital dean of the Academy. Next, Ponies on Peacock, starting January 15th. Former Game of Thrones star Emilia Clarke proves that in addition to being pretty good at conquering kingdoms and riding dragons, she's an excellent spy. In Ponies, Clarke teams up with Haley Lou Richardson, a standout in the Sicily-set second season of The White Lotus. The duo play two widows of CIA agents at the height of the Cold War in the 1970s, who used their status as persons of no interest, also known as titular ponies, to become spies themselves deep inside the Soviet Union. The two actresses are dynamic and magnetic, and the old-fashioned spycraft in the series is thrilling to watch.
And continuing the article, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms on HBO, January 18th, Sundays, 10 o'clock, Eastern Time. Now hold on to your jousting poles, because HBO's new Game of Thrones spinoff is a whole different kind of series than incestuous royalty epic House of the Dragon. Set literally down to earth in the lower classes of Westeros, Night is all about Ser Duncan the Tall, played by Peter Claffey, a hedge knight who gets into some low-stakes hijinks and adventures alongside his squire named Egg, played by Dexter Sol Ansel. This isn't a story of war and conquest and succession, but of a couple of oddballs trying to find their place in this medieval fantasy world. The show, a comedy, is based on author George R.R. Martin's novella series, Tales of Dunk and Egg. And by the way, the book of the same title, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, excellent read. The Beauty on FX and Hulu. January 21 simulcast on Wednesdays at 9 Eastern Time. Ryan Murphy, who produced the most hated show of 2025 with Hulu's high-class lawyer drama, All's Fair, already has had his first show of 2026 with Beauty, airing simultaneously on both Hulu and cable network FX. It's an adaptation of the Image Comics series. The series follows two FBI agents, played by Evan Peters and Rebecca Hall, who investigate a series of horrific deaths involving supermodels and a fancy new drug peddled by a corporation run by an elusive billionaire, played by Ashton Kutcher. The series also stars Bella Hadid, Ben Platt, Vincent D'Onofrio, Anthony Ramos, Meghan Trainor, and Isabella Rossellini, among others. Next, Wonder Man, Wonder Man, Disney Plus, January 27. No, that's not a typo for Wonder Woman. It's an entirely different superhero from an entirely different comic book universe. This is a Marvel character, and it's a tongue-in-cheek take on the whole genre. Simon Williams, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II from Watchmen, is a struggling actor who wants to be cast in a new superhero remake film about a hero named Wonder Man. And yeah, Simon has some superpowers of his own. It's comedic and strange, and brings back Ben Kingsley's hilarious Trevor from Iron Man 3, a British actor who pretended to be a terrorist as a front for the real villain. Now, it may be a tough sell for more traditional superhero fans, but it's a refreshing twist for anybody with a little bit of fatigue. Next, Bridgerton on Netflix. Part 1 streaming January 29th, Part 2 streaming February 26th. Benedict Bridgerton, played by Luke Thompson. It's your turn to find love. The wayward, bohemian second Bridgerton son, who has spent previous seasons having whimsical affairs and lamenting the chains of high society, takes center stage in the fourth season of the historical romance drama. His love interest is Sophie, played by Irene Ha, a literal Cinderella figure. She's an illegitimate child of a nobleman who is forced to work as a servant in her stepmother's house. She takes advantage of a masquerade ball for one night of high-class glory and meets Benedict. However, will these two lovers from different worlds meet again? And finally, Scrubs, February 25th, Wednesdays at 8. J.D., played by Zach Braff, Turk, by Donald Faison, Elliot, Sarah Chalk, and Carla, played by Judy Reyes, are back in their, Scrubs? ABC is bringing back the fan-favorite hospital set sitcom that ran for 7 seasons on NBC and 2 more on ABC from 2001 through 2010. But unlike the 9th season, which eschewed the core cast for a group of new doctors and nurses, the revived Scrubs has the foursome, plus John C. McGinley's Dr. Cox, whose chemistry made the series such a success during the aughts. Neil Flynn and Ken Jenkins are not returning as regulars. They may be older, but J.D.'s naivete, Cox's brash bravado, Elliot's positivity, Turk's goofishness, and Carla's calm competence all will still be there.
From the Lifeline, they said what? The star's best quotes. I would never ask strangers or fans or anybody for a nickel. That's not my style. Mickey Rourke in a video on Instagram. The Oscar-nominated actor, who is 73, slammed a GoFundMe campaign seeking to help him avoid being evicted from his home. The wrestler star said he was frustrated and confused because he does not endorse the fundraiser, and he urged fans who donated to get their money back. Describing the situation as embarrassing and humiliating, Rourke said, "I don't need anybody's money. I wouldn't do it this way. I've got too much pride, man." Now it's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Singer Shirley Bassey is 89. Game show host Bob Eubanks is 88. Actor Kathleen Noon 81. Guitarist Bobby Krieger of The Doors is 80. Actor Harriet Sansom Harris is 71. Bassist Jeff F. Abercrombie from Puel is 62. Actor Michelle Forbes is 61. Singer-actor Jenny Lewis from Rilo Kiley is 50. Actor Amber Benson is 49. Actor-director Sarah Polley, 47. Actor Gabby Hoffman, 44. Actor-singer Cynthia Erivo is 39. And singer Noah Cyrus is 26. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, January 8th, 2026. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call 821-5555. And finally, your readers today have been
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 6 of Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. Following that at 3 o'clock is The New Yorker, and at 4 o'clock a re-airing of this morning's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,